Hey guys, my name's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. So for this week's video, we are going to be doing a guide to accepting your St. Andrews offer. I'm making this particularly because I know that the international college application process can be pretty confusing, and especially for St. Andrews, I think people, especially in the US, are very used to kind of set dates for when to receive information. So I'm going to kind of give you a step-by-step guide to what exactly happens after you get and accept your offer, and all the visa matters, application, things like, student accommodation, and things like what goes into that, your CAS number, stuff like that I know you're probably going to be wondering about after you've accepted your offer, or even when you're considering it, just to show you guys that there is a process, even though it's kind of vague online, and there's not really a specific time when things are set out. I swear it's all okay, and trust the process. And without further ado, let's get started. The first thing you obviously have to do is accept your offer on UCAS, or if you did it through the Common App, accept it there. I did mine on UCAS, so it was pretty easy. You kind of just confirmed it. They show the check mark and respond to the rest of your offers for you, which is great because then you don't have to worry about rejecting them and stuff. I would recommend, even if you do the Common App, after you accepting it, just rejecting your other schools just so you can give the spots to other people. But again, that's a really nice thing about UCAS, is they just kind of do it for you. So for an example, in my timeline, I got my acceptance in November, and I accepted my offer officially in February. So that's kind of like what kind of a timeline I'm on for when I decided to actually go. So this is usually actually before you get your offer, but they might email you a little after, because I've heard of both cases, but they will usually also ask for midterm academic results. So when they asked me for this, obviously because I got my offer in November, that I was like, well, I don't have my midterm academic results because it's November. And they just kind of took a screenshot of my grades for the time and took that. So a screenshot should work. I just screenshotted my Skyward from my school. If it's a bit later and you have made it to semester 2, then you can just kind of submit your transcript with that. But if you're not quite into semester 2 yet, or you haven't quite finished your first semester or trimester or whatever system you're on, don't worry about it, because I emailed, they do take a screenshot. I would recommend, potentially, if you're kind of ahead of the timeline like I was, emailing them just so that they know they're getting a screenshot, not your final grades. But you can do it, and they took it from me, so don't worry about that. So in your vision portal you will have received as you're applying, they will have you do your criminal conviction declaration after you accept your offer. Also, it might take 1 to 2 days for the actual offer acceptance to show up in your vision portal, because I know it took 2 days for me to say offer accepted instead of I just had an offer and I hadn't taken action on it. So once you do that, they'll ask for your criminal conviction declaration. This is pretty simple. It's just a form saying that you don't have any criminal convictions, any things they should know about, or you do, but you just kind of have to fill it out as a formality and do that to continue accepting your application. So after that, there is a prepayment that you have to make, kind of like a deposit, obviously, and this is online. It's £2,000, and this is to secure your place there. The prepayment is deducted from the tuition then later at registration, so it's not like you're just paying this obviously super large amount of money with no and it doesn't go towards your education. It does, but you have to pay it to make sure that they know that you're going and you're committed, obviously. And if you don't make this prepayment within a set amount of time, they will take it as a no to your offer. So if you had a case like mine, for example, where I had about I think it was a week, maybe a little bit longer than 2 weeks is what I believe. I accepted my offer, was 99% positive, but I had 3 more college decisions to get back. I emailed them, was like, hey, can I just get an extension of literally 2 more days, because then I will be able to tell you for sure. And they said, yep, that's okay. However, I didn't know about the 2 weeks, so I'm telling you now, once you accept your offer, you do have 2 weeks to do the prepayment, so keep that in mind. For example, if you're a US student like myself and you're still receiving decisions, and like I said, you can have that option to email them, and honestly, one of the greatest things about them is their team is super flexible to work with you. So if you have any questions about this, obviously you can type it in the comments, but I would also recommend 100% before asking me, because I might not get back to you as soon as you need, ask them. They're super friendly, the emails work. So for this, they totally took care of it for me and it worked out. And once you make your prepayment, then you're actually locked in. Obviously you've already put money towards your education, and now it's time to do the rest of it, such as the accommodation and other stuff. So on the website they have accommodation applications listed as opening March 15th. However, I believe mine opened a little bit earlier. I received my email March 4th. I wrote down in my notes. And once you receive that email, you are able to open a account and rank sort of your level of accommodation. So what you should be prepared to do once you get this email, or maybe like a few weeks before when March is starting, is make sure you have a photo to put for your ID, because they will ask for an ID for like your dorm. I'd recommend a headshot. I just use one of my school photos and they'll approve that. Obviously it can't be like something you took yourself. You have to be recognizable and it has to be a professional photo, I'm pretty sure. So prepare that, and then also prepare your ranked choices of types of room. So St. Andrews is interesting because they don't allow you to rank the buildings. If you're like me and you thought you had like an idea of the buildings, I'm so sorry to spoil, but you won't be able to do that. And instead you're gonna have to rank, for example, the options, I believe, I hope this is right, self-catered standard, and then I believe like self-catered en-suite, like an ensuite bathroom, and then catered standard, and then catered ensuite. So there's 4, and you rank your types. So for example, for me, if you're like, hey, what, I just kind of want the buildings, like that doesn't really help, you can kind of skew your preferences towards getting a building that you would like. One thing I didn't realize before like calling the accommodation office is actually, if you're a fresher, you need a roommate to get like one of the buildings in town. Now I know people have differing opinions on the accommodation, but for me, I wanted to be in town and I wanted to have a building like in the action, and preferably like an old and pretty one, because obviously that's just an added benefit. So I ranked, I believe it was catered standard, and then like just did it in order of the amount of rooms at the halls that I wanted. And another thing that helped me get the hall that I want is make sure you are checking a roommate if you want to be like in town, in Sally's, Macintosh, like any of those. To be fair, I don't think you have to have a roommate, but especially for the halls in town like Macintosh and Sally's that are super popular, you need a roommate because they give the single rooms to like sophomores or juniors who are still living in accommodation, and it's really kind of impossible to get those rooms if you're a fresher. They tell you that on the tour, and they told me that on the phone. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're trying to live in town like I was. I know some people love DRA, but that wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. If you're looking for DRA, obviously you can skew it the opposite way. You can do the ensuite and self-catered, because DRA is more apartment style, they have more kitchens. You just kind of have to do your research in the dorms and kind of try to skew it to what you're hoping for. And if you're not hoping for anything, just do it as you want, and it'll kind of even out or shake out, however it works. So once you've submitted your accommodation application, it's going to take a while, and please don't panic about it. We're going to get back to the accommodation after I talk about kind of like the degree and visa, but my most important thing for now, as we're putting a pin in this, is do not panic. I have a friend who still hasn't gotten her accommodation, and it is July 7th. I applied the first day possible, and I got mine, I believe, like late June. So they send them out totally at random. I had people that got them earlier, I had people that got them later, so don't panic. It's not like the US where there's a set date, but you will get it. All is in hand. If you're worried, you can email them like I did, but trust me, as long as you've submitted your application successfully and you've gotten an email confirming it, it's on its way. It might just take a little bit longer, and the timing or like timeline that your friends are on might be a bit different from you. Okay, so next, this is something else that I kind of investigated a little bit, but for changing your degree and pivoting, obviously this is like a very American way of thinking, is trying to like change around your degree and stuff. And obviously you were admitted for a specific degree, so you can't necessarily change it completely. However, I kind of realized that I wanted to add on international relations to my degree because I thought that was very interesting and something I was maybe interested in pursuing postgraduate school. And so I emailed and I was like, hey, is there any way I can add this to my degree? I've already been admitted for English, can I add this on top? Right? And this is possible because obviously St. Andrews is a more internationally friendly school. They're a little bit more flexible with their options. You can kind of switch around your modules, courses, whatever. And it's totally possible, by the way, if you're kind of having a little thoughts or you want to add something else, or you're like, hey, I applied for something and I'm not really that big of a fan of it. This is totally normal, by the way. I've had friends go through this and email and get kind of the same result as me. So they responded, obviously, that, like I said, the team has been great about responding. So all this information is really thanks to them because they were so nice and responded to all my annoying emails. So depending on which email you email it to, or you could just directly email my application at like St. Andrews whatever, they'll send this email to them if you accidentally emailed it somewhere else or whatever, and then they will confirm, send you an email following up being like, hey, just making sure you wanted to add this to your degree, and if you confirm this, we'll proceed with changing it. And keep in mind, you will not lose your original place if you're trying to pivot. But there's also another option. You don't really have to add it up front. You can talk to your academic advisor when at school. So that's another option to think about. It's not too late if you don't add it before. St. Andrews is flexible and it's meant to be that way. But for example, if you're like me and you were pretty set on IR before, there is an option to change it before, but also it's very easy to do it with your academic advisor, and kind of a part of the whole student life there is experimenting new things and maybe tacking some extra stuff on. So if you're kind of worried about your degree and thinking, this doesn't really fit me as well as I thought it would, I might want to do something else, it's totally possible. You can do it up front, but it's also way easy to do it there as well. Okay, so eventually you will also get an email from, I believe it's the registry department is what I wrote down, with your student ID, new email, and kind of like total tuition fees. This is just an all-around email. It gives you your login, obviously the total tuition fees, which you can pay then from then on out. And I believe I got this email maybe a month or two after I accepted my application, but it's nice because I believe they also give you your My Saint login, which is kind of like the main hub. Think of it as kind of the canvas for the college. Like you can select your modules there, and you can do all your sort of academic matters, your grades, everything like that. So you will get an informational email with that, but again, just like housing, don't freak out on this. There's not like a 2-month timeline. Like you don't get it like I did 2 months exactly after. I probably got it a little later, honestly, but it will come eventually. And if you're having any issues with like it maybe not coming, again, you can email, but this email will come eventually. Don't freak out if you don't get it, but at some point you will get like your student ID, the email address, and all the other details to help kind of solidify your acceptance and have the little portal and stuff. So it's very nice. The email will come eventually. Again, don't freak out if it doesn't come right away, but you'll get one eventually, and it'll help you with your My Saint and stuff like that. You kind of need that to be able to do further things. So once you get your email, just do that, set up the account. And this is just kind of leading to another point: check your emails regularly, because a lot of this information is communicated to you via email, especially because there's not like a set timeline for when things get released, and that's totally normal. So in order to begin the visa process, you need a CAS number. So I began the visa process before I had my CAS number, which you can do. You can create an account, they'll need your email, etc., but you can only really fill out one page of the multi-page kind of like form until you have your CAS number, so you kind of just have to wait. So how do you get your CAS number? Everyone is always freaking out about this. So what you will do is you will go into your Vision portal, and on the home page, like click home on the top, you know, where it has a little bar across the top of the screen, click home, and then scroll all the way down and it will say My Visa Matters kind of on the left hand side of the screen. Click like the more information, because obviously you will need a visa if you're from outside of Scotland or the UK. And once you're in the more information page, scroll down and there will show you little like I think it's 3 or 4 little blue boxes, and they'll have red arrows, and you have to click on the red arrow for a drop down where you then confirm, for example, who you are, etc., etc. And you have to make sure to fill out all of these in order. They will not send you an email of like, for example, when you confirm who you are, you know, whatever, you'll do the first 2, but then they won't tell you when that CAS details are ready. So you kind of have to keep checking back on the My Visa Matters like more information page pretty regularly to check up on your CAS number. But once you confirm the details, about like a day or 2 later, you click on the final drop down arrow if it's gone green, and you'll have your CAS number, and then you can go back to the visa form, which you do on the like UK visas and immigration.co.uk. It's pretty easy to look up. The website is very easy to use, and once you put your CAS number in, you can kind of just keep going with the visa process. So for the visa process, you basically have to assemble a bunch of stuff. You have to have like your passport, obviously, documentation like that. I'd also recommend having your parents in the room, because it does ask some questions about like their income and their education, stuff that obviously you can infer, but I mean, I just wanted to ask them to make sure it was absolutely correct. It's a pretty easy process to do. I think I did mine in about 10 minutes once I had my CAS number. You also need to anticipate costs when filling out this visa form. They will charge you for health insurance, and it's for 4 years, so it will be expensive, but it does cover your whole time in uni. And then I believe they also charge you for submitting the visa form, so just make sure to have a credit card handy or be aware of these costs up front. I didn't write down specifically what they are, but if any of you are curious about that, just comment it down below and I can look up the specifics on the website. Once you finish, they will also have some other things for you to do. For me, I believe it was like a tuberculosis vaccine and also a biometrics, like going to an actual place just to confirm that you're a real person and like giving them your biometrics for the visa. So you'll have to book an appointment somewhere near you, obviously a big city, something like that, where you can actually access it if you're lucky enough to have one close to you. But I'm gonna have to road trip to mine. That's just another part of the process, the vaccine and that. And I don't believe there are too many more demands than that once you finish the visa, but you do have to make sure to get those 2 things done, because even though you've already done the visa form, you still need to make sure to get the other things done before you come into the country. All right, now back to accommodation. So this is like, I'm kind of going through these bullet points as the timeline as they happened to me. So once I had already done my visa and got my CIS, I finally got my accommodation, even though I applied on the first day and I got it in late June. So don't panic. Like I said, I have a friend who still hasn't gotten it, but the deadline to accept accommodation is all the way until September 9th, because obviously some of the conditional offer students figure out a bit later. Also be aware that the offer you get for accommodation, for example, like the place that they give you and the room, you have to accept, otherwise you won't have school sponsored accommodation as a first year. Obviously, if there's a real big problem or something of where you are, or you have serious concerns, again, I'd say like email them. But in general, just accept it and you'll be able to move around hopefully, and I hope you get a good dorm. But know that you do have to accept it, otherwise you have to provide your own accommodation. Okay, so moving on to modules, which I did very recently. Now this is something you find in My Saint. So you log into My Saint and you go to courses, and you look on the far right hand side, like on your computer page, and click module registration and select like modules under the like My Tasks. It's a large box that says My Tasks across the top, and you click module registration. And once you're in the module registration, it opens, I believe, I'm not sure when it opens. I think they said like mid-June. They send you an email, and basically what you'll select is they will have requirements for your majors. So it'll show it kind of on the left hand side, the requirements. You select out of the courses they have provided that fill that requirement. You get to choose one, and then you have a few extras at the bottom where you can kind of select like other interests. For me, I know I'm double majoring, so I had a little bit less space to pick and choose, but you have to make sure you fulfill, I believe it is 120 credits, and it cannot be any more than that. I got a little overzealous and chose more, and I was like, why isn't this submitting? It has to be 120, it cannot be over, and you have to make sure to have your requirements in. Now also, do not panic if your modules are like a little off, or you're like, hey, maybe I want to do something else, add an extra class, stuff like that. Don't panic. I talked to my friend who's a senior while I was filling out this thing, and she said that obviously go with your requirements, go with kind of like what the computer program suggests, but don't be too worried about your course selection because you are not locked in. For example, I've already had a schedule conflict on one of my classes that's going to have to be changed, and that's just something that's going to be sorted with my academic advisor when I'm there. So what you're doing right now is kind of a mere formality. You know, choose the requirements so they can put you in those classes, but the rest can be changed with your academic advisor. You can talk to them if you want to pivot or add extra classes or maybe swap some of them out. But for now, don't stress too much about it. Just submit the form and submit the modules, obviously the requirements, and then some extras, and it can be changed later on. Again, don't worry about it. It's the same kind of as your major and stuff. It is totally flexible, and you can work with the academic advisors once you're there, and that's what my friend told me. So even though there's a few classes that I would maybe like to switch around or try some different things, I'm not going to worry about it until I'm there, because it's just not worth it and not useful because you don't even really have your academic advisor yet. You'll meet with them the first week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you stuck around to this point in the video, comment down below, say hey. But I really appreciate you guys sticking around. I know I've been kind of missing for a while. I've been working this summer obviously to try to save up for uni, but anticipate lots of content coming when I'm there. I'm really excited, as you can probably tell by all these videos I've been making about it, but I also hope that if you're a prospective student, this helped you. I know the process can be a little confusing and especially daunting when you're going abroad, but I believe in you guys. If you're thinking about it, just go for it. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I can always make a part 2 if there's anything I missed, but I hope this kind of encompassed everything very well. It was all the things I knew I had questions about that I then asked my friend who obviously goes there, or I figured it out on my own. If you have any specific questions, again, leave them down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!